Anyway, I know this guy too. Anyway, back in '87, I can start off this conversation as Thanksgiving Day. Foot of snow. We got Betty Ellis, Russell Clark, and die-hard Don Little. No fear. All three of them. We got a foot of snow. Susanna was out that day. Moose was out that day. Franz was out that day. We met over here at Groton House on the corner of the driveway. This is Turkey Day, where you get 100, 150, anybody got a horse, they come out. That's the way it was. You know, you get some strangers out there, you know. I had the job driving the trailer. We're a foot of snow now. Picking up all the people that never hunted before. That's why over the next 6, 7 weeks with the fire trap, you'll learn how to ride and the rules and what to do before you go out there. Anyway, Franz will tell you that day. We're talking '87 Thanksgiving, foot of snow. You were out there with your father and mother. So as the meet went on, in them days, we had Smitty the cop. We used to follow the hunt. We all know Smitty. The youngsters here don't.
We miss Smitty.
And port was plenty. Driving, riding, there was port being gone down the hatch. So like I said, I was driving the truck and trailer. We got 100 people out there. Probably 3,500. The other 65 didn't know how to spell it. So as they were falling off, I was picking them up, bringing them back to the trailers. But we're still drinking port. We're a third into the hunt. They went for 5 hours, so I got a bottle done after an hour and a half with the people that were with me, driving with me. And Smitty's still directing traffic. He's into the whiskey. You know. We move on. We get to C.G. Rice. C.G. Rice was a man that could make the hooch. He'd have a fire going. He'd have a pot going. Now, and this was about halfway, 2.5 hours into the hunt. Everybody would check there. Russell was hunting the hounds. Like I said, Betty Ellis, Don Little, 3 joint masters. And C.G. goes to serving. Well, towards the end of the serving, there's people still on the ground that aren't getting on their horses because they're still hitting the hooch. And everybody's don't want to get back on the horses because it's snowing and the hooch is there. So I think the field left, we're down to probably 60 now, after the ones we lost in the woods. And now we're at the hooch. Nobody's leaving the hooch. That goes into another couple, Jim and Trish Mosley. God rest their soul. Big Jim started hunting again. So I ended up taking his horse. I left him with CG. And me and the other people that were driving with me, Charlie Morgan, Don's son Doolittle, we went on, cracked open another port. You know, Smitty's directed traffic, so we know where we're going. I don't know. I'm not that important. So I think we leave C.G. Rice's. I think we're moving over here by Black Oak. And we're going, we're checking over here in the field down here, and we're going into Bradley Palmer. We got 3 joint masters still. Russell might have had Carbine left, that was it. He went out there with 10 couple. I think Carbine was still on the lead, you know. We go through, they tear up all of the park and everything. They come down to Freddie Winthrop's, cross the road, come in the back gate. Freddie's over there. He was hunting at the time too. We go through his property, back over to 30-acre field. George Cott was around. He was still alive, which is Freddie Winthrop Jr.'s property now, where the Red Barn is. They checked there again. And we got Danny Warrington out there with Mrs. Perry's daughter. You know, he's jacked up to here. He's a jump jock, you know. I'm waiting for this guy to fall off, you know. I just met him, you know. We're talking '87, my first year here. So Danny comes flying off the Mosley wall where Big Jim broke his back. Danny comes flying over the wall, down the hill, towards the red barn. And I mean, the horse is like this, one of them green things that Mrs. Perry had over there. He's still jacked up like he's running over brush. But he stayed on. I didn't have to put him on the trailer. Granted, you know, now I only got a 2-horse trailer. It ain't like the newer, as I got on, I got a 10-head trailer, you know. So I got rid of him, got him on. And then, where did we go from there? We went from the, oh yeah, Big Don. I had to go over to Crocker Snow's property at the time, before Don got hold of it all. We crossed the river, we go into Mrs. Bird's, which is Waldingfield. This is Thanksgiving Day. We're probably 4 hours now, you know. We're probably down to 35 people. We started with 100, you know, Turkey Day. We're down to 35. We're in the Bird's polo field. We're gonna jack on over, open up another port. Smitty's still directing traffic. He's on Waldingfield directing. You got about 50 cars behind us. Everybody's drink. They didn't go to football. They went to the hunt. We go into Appleton's.
More casualties.
Yeah. And no, I take that back. We didn't go into Appleton's because Mrs. Appleton was annoyed with us.
Yeah.
Neil Air pissed her off. As we go into Appleton's, we really weren't in Appleton. We were along Waldingfield Road, where you proceed past Amanda Smith's house. You can come left there on that side road. You come back out and you're back at Groton House. That was about 4.5 hours, I'd say. So that was an 87 1-foot snow hunt that I started out on.
Trial by fire, Dougie.
Yeah. And like I said, I seen Big Don in Palm Beach that winter. He said, Mahoney, what are you doing this summer? I said, I don't know. I got to get back to New York. Got to get back to the track. Because down there I wasn't doing anything, just hanging out. He says, I need help for the summer. I said, all right, call my father, see if he'll say it's all right, and I'll come up there. So that's how I got here.
Well,
87 hunt, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
2024, talking with Suzanne. That was the end of the 87 hunt. That was just the beginning. So now we got a break. I
you
ain't
had a
talking.
picture of that in here, I thought.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget that day.
There's a picture of Moose, my father and I, leaving a barn
Yeah,
in the snow.
yeah.
That's in the barn.
Yeah, that's in the barn.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Turkey Day, 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had goggles on, snow, ski goggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 87 was a great year. So now we move on. Betty Ellis, Russell Clark, Don Little. The three of them are feuding. You know, you got 2 men and a woman joint masters, you know, they're all knocking heads.
We know how that works.
We know how that works. You know. So now as
Works much better now.
Good call. That was nice.
But them days, you know, with Betty, God, she's still alive. We got to get her.
Yeah,
I know.
She's the
Well,
classic,
She would have some
you know.
tales, yeah, good.
So we move on, 87, 88 was a so-so year. Well, like I said, Moose is, you see, I was with a different era, you know. I was with the Colorados, the Perrys, the Mosleys. Neil and I was still alive. He had cancer, but he come out 1 check, you know. That was another thing. He had 2 escorts, you know. Fifi Cole, Carla Skinner, you know. What we gonna do? This is hunting, you know.
Sally bags.
2 dates out there, you know. Neil, I had to tell him. And things went on because Neil at one time, he was master, and then Russell took over, Betty took over, and then, you know, Albie Ellis, Betty's son, made a deal with Big Don and said, listen, I'll take over Captain Apollo if you help Russell and Betty be joint master. That's how Don got started, him and Albie, because he gave up captain and, you know, Albie got involved in polo. He's another star, I don't know. He could talk for hours. Him and John, the Ellises. They were good huntsmen. I mean, like John, we didn't have many whips at the time. John Ellis was a whipper in. Michelle Jeffries, who isn't here, who I thought was gonna be here. She was in charge of Russell's operation. She whipped in,
Yeah.
you know. And then John Ellis was a big whipper in, who we need to get back here again. I seen him out Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
he
needs
said
to be
I need
involved.
come out.
Yeah. Ann Seymour says Albie ain't allowed to ride no more. He gets hurt, he gets addicted, you know. We all do. I was on the good stuff last year. Remember that, when you get hurt, you're gonna get hurt. Don't eat the pills. You'll be smiling every day. That's just a little hunting trick. Because you're gonna fall.
So
And-
that's how Dawn got involved.
What's that?
That's how Dawn got involved.
Don was kind of involved when Nuri was
Yeah, you know, like,
fired, and Don was involved for a little while then. That would have been 90. I was back by then. So
yeah, you was hunting
95.
moose. That's when, you know, Mrs.
Yeah.
Perry, the Mosleys, you know, everybody was out there, you know. Mrs. Murray, great
Yeah.
hunt secretary, Mrs. Murray. Tim Murray, he's still around. He should be involved.
Yeah, he was a good rider.
Yeah, good rider, you know.
Esdale's were all out.
But, you know,
when I
that's
came
the
back in '92, Russell had enough,
Mm-hmm.
and he did it for maybe 2 more years.
Yeah.
And I whipped for him for a year or two. Ollie Rourke was whipping for him.
Oh yeah, I'll eat those
I
there.
couldn't understand a word he was telling you to do, so it was a hard job. And then Nuri became
Michelle's
the
ears
master.
must have been burning.
Oh,
She
you
just
remember?
got
Yeah, I
there.
remember that.
Yes.
That's when Becca, we used to lay it on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, Russell would give me a pecan and a rag and run through the property with it, you know. But one time I got it. I'm over there behind Dana Hersey's house. And I went from Waldingfield through the river, Crocker Snow's property, behind Dana Hersey's house, right before you get into my greens. I took the rag, not knowing, and threw it up in a freaking tree. You know, being a New Yorker, what do I know about laying a scent? All I did was run and squirt it, you know. And so now I got 10 couple, 20 hounds. They're all looking up a tree. There's a rag. He pulled up and checked over there, you know, Russell, because he used to squirt it out in the back of the 6-horse van. Michelle be driving. Freaking Russell be squirting it out down the blacktop. You know? So when Nori, come to think of it, there's a great woman there that laid the scent. She could tell you stories about that. I used to watch her. I shake my head and say, oh no. She would be on a horseback. She started laying the line on horseback back in the day. She'd come to a fence, pop that thing in the air, pop over the fence, make the hounds jump it, you know. And she'd move on, you know. She did it the whole season with Nori. It was different, you know. It did help instead of running on the ground.
Yeah.
It did make a difference when you started laying the line.
Didn't you get your scent wrapped up in a horse's tail once?
I might have. I'll tell you another thing
Horse
about
got loose and took off, and it had the scent.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That one I was, yeah. Talking about scents, we get this Welshman, Eugene McKay. He comes over from Wales, Don hired. This is our first professional huntsman. He says, Doug, I need a hand in the schooling field laying a line for the hounds. So I go over there with Carango, one of Big Don's horses, the famous Carango. And like an idiot, you know, I get off him. I do his front feet like this, go around, squirt this one. I squirt this one. And then I come around this way to this side, put the reins down and squirt. There he goes.
So you were scenting the horse.
I got scent on the cornet band, and he's running around the schooling field, and I'm standing there watching him. Here goes Carango and 20 hounds behind him. No rider. He's running around the schooling field. This is good for you to know, Sam. All we did was sit there and wait for Carango to stop running. He had 20 hounds chasing behind him. Erica knows that trick.
Oh, I was there.
That was the cornet band one. She could squirt him. And it did work. But the first time we did it, you know. Them freaking hounds were running around everywhere. Triangle just kept running. So they got exercise, you know. And then the great Welshman, he's on a gray horse that he got from Nori's wife, was half broke. He goes chasing after him. He hits the ground. So now we got a gray horse and a bay horse. 20 hounds running around the schooling field.
That's great.
You know, you ain't gonna see this on TV. You gotta be there. It does happen. But anyway.
You get a prize
Oh.
if you name everybody.
Yeah, I bought that big dark horse from
You were jumping gates.
picnic tables.
Oh, that's another thing with Russell Clark.
Oh,
Michelle's here now.
Yeah.
She'll tell you about the great Russell Clark with jumping.
yeah.
You know him, Franz. You know the stuff, things you would get into.
No, that's the Christmas tree farms we used to go through. So I thought I would bring a picture from back in the day every week, and you get a prize if you can name all the participants.
Wow.
Yeah, this is from Russell. This is 1980, maybe 9.
Huh?
And
I talked about 87. That was my
Suzanne,
first
you'll know
year.
everybody in here. It's kind of hard to pick them out, but
Let's have a look.
you might get it. There's some oldies but goodies, so it's pretty hard to pick them out. So I can tell you.
Yeah, it's a little hard. Amanda's in the first row.
Very
I
good.
think.
Yeah, that was a given.
So you can probably get
And
2
I might
of
know the
them.
man.
Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of them, and I'll bring some of them up.
He's busy. I couldn't get him over here. I mean,
Oh, I
someone's
know.
gonna do this in a couple of weeks. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. That's Amanda.
Amanda,
Yeah.
So there's John
I
Ellis.
can't see without my glasses.
John Ellis, I see.
Do you remember Charles Malcolmus?
Yeah, I remember.
I don't remember
Do you,
him.
you know the property on 1A in
He was a
Wenham
dentist.
across from the tea house, which is now, I think it's, I don't know if it's an old age home or.
Right, it used to be
A
the
farm.
Swans something.
Well, that was a farm, and that
Yeah.
was Dr. Charles Malcolmus's farm, and he
I
hunted.
remember those horses.
He
Yeah.
hunted out of there, and that he's up far top left.
Okay.
And then Patty Murray's sister is across from me. I'm on a gray. That is the Christmas tree farm in
Yeah.
West Newbury that we would hunt through.
Sure.
Come down through. Amanda Smith, John Ellis, Patty Murray's sister. I have to look at a few other people and then I.
Jerry
Was
Mahoney.
Patty
opens all
Murray's
that up.
sister in the tweed
Remember
coat?
Jerry Mahoney?
No, she's
He
blue
opened
coat
up all that
colors,
property,
collar.
'cause it was an old hunting property.
I
from
have
the
to
old
sort of look at
days.
it to refresh my memory.
That's,
I have so
who's
many
his
good old
wife's
ones that I'll
Yeah.
have to keep
Father,
bringing.
that's father-in-law,
Oh, Fifi
right?
Coles,
That's Fifi, yeah.
That's right.
Jim
Esdale's
Esdale's.
daughter's
Um,
father-in-law.
Yeah.
Right.
John Ellis,
Yeah. he's
Jerry
pretty
Mahoney
famous.
Sean,
opened up a lot of that help.
myself.
Yeah.
Mary Lou
Patty
did a lot
Who's this?
Yeah.
keeping it going.
Neil Air.
That's Neil, wow.
Yeah, that's Neil.
Do we want to pass that picture around while Dougie
Yeah.
I
continues
have
his
many,
stories?
many from the
Just trying to-
80s, late 70s, early 80s, and then into the 90s. So I ran Russell's Barn for like about 10, almost 11 years. And we have some great photos, so I'm gonna start bringing them in and we can pass them around and have some fun.
You're gonna have your own day, Michelle.
Oh, I don't know about that. Dougie and I can banter back
We're
and
getting
forth.
back to Michelle now, bringing that up.
You can pass it around.
Big Don says to me, he
That's
says,
so
you know
cool.
anything about hunting? I said, yeah, I'm from Long Island. They laid a line out at Smithtown. He says, go over to Russell's Barn. There's a good looking brunette over there.
I was
Introduce
brunette at that
yourself.
time.
He says, introduce yourself and she'll tell you all about hunting. So I go over there and says, what do we gotta know? Get on this horse, get on that horse, grab that one, off we go.
Well, you never just, you had so many to ride
Yeah.
back in the day.
I
You
don't
never
need one.
just got on one, you always took one with you. And when you hacked out to keep them fit, you didn't just hack out for 15, 20, 45. You were going for an hour to 2 hours to keep them going, so.
So we get on them, we go through the Harvard Woods. Some of them fences are still there. 4-foot coops, pressure treated, they're still there. That Raymond built.
Huh.
He was in charge of the hounds at the time. So I get my lesson, and I meet a brunette, you know. Big Don's trying to keep me here in myopia, you know. And I says, all right, I'll stay another 2 months, you know, through the season.
So he comes in the barn, and my first question is, I'm working, and I said, "Can you ride?" And he said, "Yes." And I'm thinking, well, Don always sends me these
X-race
people.
tracker.
First thing he says is that I'm like, "Great, you can ride." So off we go, and we're out for a good hour and a half, and I'm like, "Oh, great, Dougie, this guy can ride. We're good." And like, Don finally got somebody that can ride because he had hired some people, let's just say people, before Dougie, and he kept sending them over, and I kept losing them in the woods, and I'd lose them in the woods, and Don would call me up later on, he'd call Russell, and I'd say, "You gotta get another one, this isn't gonna work." Yeah, it's not gonna work, So, lo and behold, we finally got somebody that could ride. And,
That's how I learned about hunting at myopia.
Yeah,
So that was 87, 88.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It was actually 87 right on the money because I had come out here from the racetrack myself. Elsa Mosley was a friend of mine, and she said, she was at the racetrack galloping. We were together, and she said, "Why don't you come on out? My mom has some horses on a farm out there, and we really could use some help." And it was Mrs. Peary's farm, and so I had gone out to help out on the farm, and long story short, I ended up working over there, went to the 86 World Championships with the driving horses.
Wow.
Ended up there for a few years, and then Russell had needed someone to run the farm over there, and ended up in the hunt world. It was great. It was a lot of fun back then.
So getting to hunting now, it's, you got the front field, you gotta be mounted to be in the front field, and you gotta be brave. The middle field, which is the pick and choose, we've had a lot of good times in there. People would go around fences. Some would jump, Then the hilltopping. I like the hilltopping. That was my favorite. I'd have about 30 women behind me. All the time. So if I get permission from my wife next year, I'll be back.
Excellent.
Hilltopping can be a lot of fun, but it's also good for the beginners to go on and move your way up. And when you get a young horse or a green horse, don't always think you're going to be easy in the hilltop. Sometimes green horses need to move on, and they need to be up there.
Dougie kick you right out of the hilltoppers. If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
great horse. You're like, "You don't belong here, get out." You're upsetting my people.
Yeah. You gotta have something nice and quiet, and you gotta be able to walk, trot, and canter, and jump logs, and go through rivers. So if you can't do that, don't go hunting. It's just something you gotta practice. Another thing, if you're gonna hilltop, ride with a couple people all the time. Give up on riding by yourself, because when you get out hunting, you're gonna be out there with 20 to 80 people. They're gonna be in a group. So if you're not hacking out with people every day or every other day, it's gonna be different to them. So they get accepting it more and more when they're out with other company during the week. When you move into hunting, you'll be used to the pack of horses and running into you and this and that, A lot of people don't know that. They'll go out riding by themselves and they'll say, "Oh, I want to hunt." They get out there with 30 horses and they're scared.
Dougie's favorite line, I don't know if you've used this one lately, but we would be out there and there'd be a lot of people out, and we'd be going along and people would be having some trouble, and back in the day, Mrs. Ellis was one of the field masters, and
Oh yeah.
heaven
was
help
tough.
you if
Yes.
you passed Betty Ellis. It did not, it didn't happen. I don't, get off, throw yourself on the ground.
Right.
It was a better option than passing Mrs. Ellis, and so you just didn't do it. It just didn't happen if she was the field master and you were meant to be behind her. And so Dougie's favorite line after that happened a couple of times to a few people and they were sent home immediately was, "If you can't ride them, don't buy them." So
Yeah, that was one of them. And then I said, if you're following me, if I go down, just go around. Don't stop.
yeah.
I go down, go around. Because I was always, looking for fields. I run into an old timer in Virginia, a Piedmont hunt. Patrick Keogh and I were standing there out in this big field, and this old timer took care of hunters, He was in his 80s, but he says, I never heard of a horse breaking a leg on a gopher hole. Which I got to thinking, I've been on some horses, when you come up on a gopher hole, they go around. It's you that puts them there. He says, you gotta have a horse, go for a horse, bro. Go for a hole, bro. So when you're looking and going, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you gotta just turn their heads loose, let them feel the way they're going. Where they're running in the big grass fields, they know where they're putting their front horse. Boom, boom, boom. They just know it more than the rider does. They'll save you a lot more than you think. Even jumping fences. Throw their heads away, they'll jump and you just grab mane and hold on.
One of the things Dougie really taught me was, if it happens, don't get upset. just, you know, if something happens out there, just don't yell and get upset and scream, and you come off, somebody can keep completely calm. And whatever the situation is, just be completely calm. In one particular incident in Piedmont, I believe we're in Virginia,
Oh yeah.
we had taken, I had a
Lloyd's
6
of
horse-
London, yeah. Russell's
Yeah.
horses, Don's horses.
We had taken these horses and we had this cross-country tour, and we had taken the Lloyd's of London people, we were mounting them. And we were doing, I don't know, with 8 or 9 or maybe more. We were starting in New York, and we were going from New York to Pennsylvania, all the hunts, all the way down to Middleburg, doing Middleburg, Piedmont, Orange County, and we were mounting these people, and we were hunting going on. And so I had a
The
6
Piedmont
horse,
hunt.
we had a 6-horse van, and I was pulling in, and Dougie was ahead of me with Don's horses, and I was pulling in, and the van is rocking and rolling, and I know something has happened back there that's not good. And all I can do is pull over as soon as I get, and we're in the meet, pull in, and Dougie comes walking over. He's gonna help me with the ramp, and I go, "It's not good, Doug." And you know, all the gentlemen show up with their attire, and they're all looking very sharp, and my eyes are getting about this big, and I'm like, "Okay." And so we open the doors, and there they are, upside down.
You're kidding.
No, somebody had gotten upset, and you know, this one particular gentleman, we had picked up a horse that had never ridden in the van against my better judgment, and the gentleman, you know, said, "Can I ride with you?" And Russell, being the nice person as he was, said, "Yes, we'll pick you up." And long story short, and so Dougie opens the door and he says, well, that's not good. And I'm just like, we got 6 horses out there and they're all upside down. He's like, don't worry about it.
Erskine Bedford was the
So, yeah.
the master at the time at Piedmont. Randy Waterman at the time was just the huntsman, you know. So they all left at 10 o'clock, Russell's crew and all of the Piedmont hunt, you know. And what was that senator's name? Warner?
I don't remember.
One of
Yeah,
them.
John Warner.
Yeah, we were at Senator Warner's property, you
Huh.
know. And he wasn't there though, but we were at his property.
What's Elizabeth Taylor did? That's the most
Yeah,
important.
he was
thing.
out with Liz Taylor, yeah.
Married her.
Yes.
That's it. Senator Warner. So the hunt leaves at 10 o'clock. Piedmont, you know, they go. It's a Friday. That's their big hunt. So it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we see him coming through the back of Senator Warner's property. So we figure it's the end of the day.
It was dusk. It
It
was
was
getting
dusk.
dark.
You know, December,
Yeah.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, all of a sudden, Randy had about 30 couple out there. He probably had 50, 60 hounds because the Lords of London were there. And it was a Friday. It was a big day. It's like over in England with the corn. Friday's their big day.
No, to the story. We jumped up in the van, and I don't know if anybody ever had one of those old Imperators 6-horse vans. We just started pulling the chains and the petitions, and everything comes apart. Don't know how, but these horses were fine. Well, everything
Not
just
a
came
scratch.
apart, and one just got itself up, and then they just
They
started
were
stand up
upside
and
down.
got him down the ramp, and everybody was fine. And I was just like, Dougie was right. So yeah,
Put 'em on the horses.
yeah,
Off they
so
go.
off they go. Yeah.
They were off at 10 o'clock. Now it's 4 o'clock. They're coming in. And I said, oh, good. I'm getting out of here. I'll have dinner by 8. Make a long story short, the hounds get something.
Oh, right, as they
The
come
horn
in.
goes off just as they're coming to the trailers. what was that called? The afternoon fox or the?
It was
It was a
called.
saying.
It was called. I'm missing my dinner. Is what it was called.
They went out for another hour and a half. They come in at 6 o'clock. And then, not so much getting off of myopia, but I've been out there in Virginia in December. We'd go for 2 weeks, which you should all do one
I
time.
went with you, Dougie.
You were down there
Yeah,
when we went
twice.
to Virginia and Maryland.
Tom
did.
Everts.
You,
Was
the
White,
Ellises,
was-
yeah.
yeah.
You were there. And one time, Big Don went out. We had this gray horse. They went over this muddy creek.
This at the end? One of the latter ones?
No,
He had that
we didn't-
big gray horse. In the last couple of years he was hunting.
No,
Really?
that was Grover. That was the good one.
Yeah, really nice horse.
This one here was, Gus was so,
Steel
So
wheels.
anyway,
Steel Wheels is the
Yeah.
one. I was
we
thinking
call
of.
him Gus.
We got him from
Yeah.
Glengarry,
Yeah.
right?
And it was red clay in Virginia. So as they go into the creek, we're only 15 minutes into the hunt. This is called hunting. This is what you gotta learn and do. Big Gus, he slides down into the river, loses his balance, and him and Don go under. We're 15 minutes into the hunt.
Yeah.
Big Don ain't coming off. He climbs back on. See you later. So now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sitting in the trailer waiting. They're both soaking wet. Here comes the snow, and they're still not in. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Virginia. They got in they were out for about 8 hours that day. Soaking wet. Gus, he ate his dinner, he ate his breakfast, he was good. Big Don saddle, he had one of them old Steubens, weighed a ton for a month. Take his boots off. But this is what happens in Virginia. You'll see this up in West Newbury when you cross rivers. I've seen 3 women that are not here today hit the river over in Groton House. All 3 of them went under the water. I'm not going to tell their names because I'm still laughing about it. I happened to be behind when it happened. 3 gals went in the water at Groton House going into Ann Getchell's property.
There was one
It
season
does
where
happen.
Angela Corning was
Oh,
the
yeah.
captain of the myopia swim team.
Yes.
Oh, you remember that time we took it to the hunter trials? And you.
Oh my God! The time you went to
This
Westport,
is going to a hunter trial.
Oh,
This
no.
is what you do when you go to a hunter trials.
that was the longest day of my life. Waiting for you drunks to finally get home. It's awful.
But we
Well,
didn't
he
we
did
showed
this
up
one
with
time.
tents.
Yeah.
We had full tents and complete spreads, and those hunter trials were. You worked all year to go to those hunter trials. That was those were big things.
So we pull up to Becca's barn. I got Peter Campbell in there, Albert Ellis, Don Little, and the Swedish woman. Becca opens the door. She falls out. Peter Campbell falls out.
It was awful.
Oh,
I had to take the lighthouse away from everybody.
oh
I
yeah.
had to take it and hide it.
That's a hunter trials if you ever get interested in going. Just prepare to drink. That's what they do.
No wonder I was able to win those things. I just show up and ride and then leave.
Well,
On Winston.
Yeah, and what were you guys doing calling from the north end?
I don't know.
You stopped for pastry or some ridiculous thing on the way home.
We were
We had to
leaving,
come through
yeah, it was
there.
in Norfolk, they had the hunter trials, the New England's or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called you from Mike's Pastry, I remember.
Yeah. I know. It's like, come
The
on.
places the trailers used to go,
Russell had some amazing horses.
didn't he?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
did.
those horses were amazing. The ones he had at the end seemed very difficult to ride.
Listen, the ones in the beginning they were all difficult to
Yeah.
ride.
All them English
No,
ones.
they were great. They
Mrs.
all
Bird.
came over from England.
What was her name? What was Mrs. Rich? They come out of Mrs.
Barbara
Rich's
Rich.
barn, yeah.
Robert Rich.
In England.
Well, he only had he had one over there. I went over
I
there.
don't
and-
think so.
I went over there and I said, "Oh, I'd love to see Russell's horse." And she looked at me and she said, "Which one?" And I said, "The bay one." She
They're
said,
all
"No."
bay.
She said, "Which one?" They're all bay. I said, "Oh, the one he has." And She said the one of 9.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they were lovely. They were lovely. It wasn't that they were difficult to ride, but they were very used to open gallop jump. So you're coming into a situation
Yeah.
where, so they could be a little hard to rate or hold.
Yeah.
A little hard. And they were, of course, they were all 17, 2 plus. Yeah. And he had this thing about grain. I would put them on this wonderful program, and he would come in at night and tell me, I gave them a snack. I said, there's a bin empty. There's an entire bin empty. What kind of a snack did you give them? Well, tomorrow's a big day. No, it's a Wednesday. We're roading. No. The entire bin is, well, I just think they love that. Yeah, of course they do. So they were,
When they're young and riding like that, I've been through with Big Don. When I first went to work for him, we were pumping oats, sweet feed, stress sticks, anything you could think just to pump them up. Snaffles in their mouths. Well, the last 2 years he hunted, they got a handful of feed and a ring bit.
I was on the hay program. They were getting hay.
So, Franz is still young. They're still feeding them horses.
Yeah.
Wendy's horse, still feeding it.
Hay stretcher is a wonderful thing. It sounds like grain. It looks like grain.
When Don gave me Roma, he said, just don't give her any grain.
Exactly.
Just don't feed, whatever you do, don't feed her. You'll be fine, just don't feed her.
I did. I got smart, and I would dump the hay stretcher and get rid of all the bags so that it was just hay stretcher. And he thought it was grain. It was fabulous. It was wonderful. Did you give them more? Oh, great. That's wonderful. So, but they were lovely.
They were beautiful horses, yeah.
They were lovely. And they were, if you were up at the front, they were pretty good. But
Go to the back.
when they first came over, it would be nice in the back. He would say, "Why don't you let's try this one out in the back." Great. Okay. So, but they
Don
were
had
good.
great horses. What was it, Contessa? Is that one? of
Yeah,
those
that
horses?
was, she was she was shipped over from Amsterdam, and she had something wrong with her neck. The people in Chicago did. When she got done jumping, we were going to make a field hunter out of her. Anyway, there was something wrong with her neck. I said, Don, we'll fix her. Hunt her. And she hunted 10 more years,
I hunted her a season.
You hunted her
yeah,
too.
I like her a lot.
Yeah.
Got me back into it.
Well,
actually.
that's the other thing is when you're buying horses, you always try them, you like them, you get, not one horse, as good as it is for this person, doesn't mean it's going to be good for you. You always got to try. We're a $50,000 horse here for this guy, it might only be worth a $5,000 horse for you. That's the way they're valued. The better the
Exactly.
rider, you can find cheap horses, expensive horses. Some are more pricey because that's the way you feel comfortable on them. So,
He had one particular horse that I really loved. This was the Admiral, but he was not for everybody.
no.
He was not. The first 2 weeks I got to ride him when he came over. Let's put it this way: I got a lovely bunch of flowers sent to me with the card that said, "So sorry to have lost you at sea. With love, the Admiral." Needless to say, you know where I fell off. So, but he was lovely. But in the end, he was sold. I think he went to James Donovan, and they just didn't get along.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good match. But most of them were pretty nice horses. But
Randy
there was a
had a
lot
good
more
horse.
country than here. There's a lot more land, and so you were out a lot longer. And there were, more places that you had a little bit of a gallop. You could go on a bit. So.
It's slowing down everywhere. Virginia, Maryland. It's different.
Hey, Russell had some pretty bad accidents, didn't he? Didn't he crash into the brush fence and Bradley Palmer?
He did.
Yeah.
He, over the course of quite a few years that I was with him, he had 2 or 3. But he was just so game,
Yeah, he was.
and sometimes didn't.
They all jump fences backwards.
Oh, that one day, I just couldn't. He was. They, and I say they because sometimes he and Don, when he decided to go with a joint master, because quite a long time he was their own master, he and Don would have this rivalry about jumping things. And that one particular day, they were going to the schooling field over to Ledyard. And so they're going into Ledyard, and I was on, thank God, Seal of Freedom, which was one of his nicest horses, and he was on Isaac's. Do you remember that very nice gray horse he had?
Yes, yeah,
Light gray.
That was a good one.
yeah.
And they headed into Ledyard, and the hounds got on the line immediately. And I suddenly looked up, and I couldn't get to them because, you know, he was way out front, and you're going backwards, and I don't know if anybody knew the Ledyard course, which the intermediate course or even the preliminary course that went around the outside, it was meant to be run one way, and if you went the other way, it was backwards. And so some of the fences you shouldn't be jumping backwards, and so they're heading to some of these fences that they're going to jump backwards. So if you jump a Turkana backwards, it's pretty concerning. And so I just tried to get to them, but they did it. He and Big Don got into a little bit of a, we're just going to head into these fences and we're going to do it. And because Don jumped one, I'm going to jump the next one, and I'm going to jump the bigger side. And then Don said, well, I'm going to jump the bigger side of the next one. And lo and behold, off those two boys went, and, you know, went around the Ledyard course backwards. And
Another thing, honey,
they made
too,
it.
is
and yeah,
when you see
so-
Franz up there on the front end, always go to Sam. Ask her, who's he riding? Because some are better than the other.
That's true.
Big Don had 4 horses. When he was on the mares, I said, don't even follow him. Don't even go. Go to the backfield. When he was on Gus, or he was on Carango or somebody, Carango was a great horse. But, you know, Carango, he'd run into a tree with you. He didn't care. He didn't want to go. I said, if he was on Carango or Gus, follow him, because Don ain't going to get brave. On them mares, when he was on them mares, do not follow, because they could never stop, you know.
Yeah,
Russell
they were
was
nice
the same
for-
way
he
with
was
his
the
string.
same way.
And you're going to get the same way with your string now, you know. You got a couple over there, you know. They're all good, but there's some better than the other.
Yeah,
That's what
sure.
you got to watch out with you know. You're going to be cocky one week. Well, I better back off a little, you know.
It was you must remember this, Dougie. We're Thanksgiving, we're at Appleton, Don's the master,
Over in the corner.
over in the corner.
Snow.
We'd meet-
Nancy's
yeah.
Corner, yeah.
Yeah, in
Well,
the
no,
snow.
We started at the Oak Grove.
Yeah.
It's cold, very cold. We don't really warm up.
That was
we
our
do-
first year Mrs. Appleton let you back in.
We did this short loop and came over the in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And Don came over the first one. He got off balance. He got to the second one. He came off his horse. He landed on the ground. He was motionless.
Oh yeah, that was on Calvin.
Yeah.
I was on Contessa, yeah, I remember. I thought I was a outrider at the racetrack. I got a picture of me with her on a hocks like a cutting horse, picking up Calvin. Oh yeah, Big Don, he broke his neck again.
And that might have been 06 or something, because I had
Yeah.
two kids with me who
Yeah.
were on polo ponies, and they don't jump.
Right.
These 2 polo ponies don't jump. So we spent about a half an hour to make sure Don was still alive. And they call in an ambulance.
Yeah, he went
And
in
then
there.
there's an argument about, okay, now who's in charge?
Oh yeah, Albert.
Albert and Bob Johnson. So
Yeah.
that took another half hour for those 2 guys to sort
This
out
is
who
a
was
great
in
story.
charge.
I don't know why I forgot this
Yeah.
one. What Franz is talking about. Oh, it gets better.
And
Go
so
on.
then we take off again. I can't remember who won the argument, so let's say it was Albert. And we are going through the great pasture, and there's a fence at the bottom of the hill. And so we're coming down the fence. Everyone's going over the fence. And I've got these 2 kids on these polo ponies. So how the hell am I going to get over this fence? And so then Tom Everts goes
Oh, yeah.
flying by us, and he decides he can't stop his horse in time, so he's just going to gap the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes around the fence, and there's wire there, and he runs through the wire. His horse totally flips.
Big time.
Tom goes flying off the horse, blood everywhere because the horse has cut up his chest. And these 2, with these 2 boys, and they had never really hunted before. And they said, "Does this happen?" And Tom gets up, and he was a really big guy. Tom gets up and says, "What the hell was that?" Thanks for creating a gap, Tom.
Oh yeah, I had Eugene. Eugene wasn't the huntsman. I think Richard was hunting the hounds that year.
Could have been.
Eugene's first
Yeah.
year off. Well, Eugene being Eugene McKay, he hunted the hounds for 8 years, the Welshman. He's going to get on Carango, right? Because I had too many horses because Andy was there, somebody else they all got off their horses and, you know, I gathered. Don
Yeah.
went in the ambulance, I got
Yeah.
stuck with all the horses. Eugene ends up going to the hospital too because Carango yanked his arm out of jock. And Brenda, my wife's telling him, Eugene, don't get up. You know Carango. Well, he's up. He grabs his hand, the reins. Carango jumps away from him, pulls his arm out of the socket. Off he goes to the hospital.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that
It was a day. It was a day.
it was a day.
Yeah.
Oh, Eugene.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shall we take a quick break and have some snacks that everybody's brought us?
Sure.
I'm gonna go for hot chocolate.